The Young and the Restless heats up during the week of January 5 through 9, 2026. As danger escalates and several storylines move toward major turning points, Matt Clark, also known as Mitch McCall, continues to lead destruction in his wake as more members of the Newman family get pulled into his orbit. Victor Newman and Nick Newman work aggressively to contain the threat, but new complications make control harder than expected. Although Sienna Beale may soon be safely reunited with Noah Newman, Matt's influence doesn't end there. He continues causing trouble for Nick, Sharon Newman, and others in Genoa City. Just when it appears the danger has passed, Matt resurfaces for one final high-stakes round. Lily Winter struggles with her emotions after the New Year's Eve kiss with Kane Ashp. Her mind tells her Kane will never change and will always be a liar, but her heart isn't ready to let go of the connection between them. That internal battle leaves Lily questioning what her future should look like. Holden Novak pulls back from revealing the full truth about what really happened in Los Angeles to Claire Newman. Audra Charles feels some relief, but she knows it may only be temporary. Claire could eventually wear Holden down. And if the truth comes out, it could blow everything wide open. Kyle Abbott shifts his priorities after giving up on a romantic future with Claire. The question now is whether they will still team up to take down Audra or go their separate ways. Kyle turns his focus toward helping Jack Abbott protect Jabao as Victor Newman intensifies his attack. The long-running Jack vs. Victor feud reaches new levels with dirty tactics and shocking confrontations on both sides. Billy Abbott finds himself at a crossroads. He knows staying on his best behavior is the only way to hold on to Sally Spectra, but temptation pulls him toward a dangerous alliance with a vengeful Phils, putting everything he cares about at risk. Meanwhile, Mariah Copeland's mental state continues to deteriorate. Hallucinations and psychological manipulation push her closer to a complete breakdown, leading her toward extreme actions. Behind-the-scenes clues confirm that Mariah will soon kidnap Dominic Newman, Abbott Winter's chancellor, launching a massive mystery storyline. The fallout will draw in Tessa Porter, Daniel Romalotti Jr., Abby Winters, and Devin Winters as panic and suspicion spread. Overall, the week lays crucial groundwork for the months ahead, combining emotional conflict, escalating danger, and shocking twists that promise major consequences for Genoa City. The Young and the Restless, major 2026 storyline, Dominic's kidnapping, and Mariah's breaking point. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into what might be one of the most devastating and controversial storylines The Young and the Restless has ever attempted. The kidnapping of Dominic Newman, Abbott Winter's chancellor, and the strong indication that Mariah Copeland in the midst of a severe mental health crisis is the one who takes him. This isn't just spoiler speculation. We've got leaked behind-the-scenes footage, Entertainment Tonight coverage of Detective Burrow's expanded role, insider information, and a web of interconnected storylines that all point to an absolutely heartbreaking 2026 plot. We're talking about a mother figure driven to the breaking point, a child in danger, parents devastated by betrayal, and a mental health crisis that puts everyone at risk. Before we dive in, I want to say this is going to be a heavy topic involving mental illness, child endangerment, and characters we love making terrible choices during psychological crisis. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments how you feel about YNR potentially going in this direction with Mariah's character. Alright, let's break down everything we know about this major 2026 storyline. The evidence, behind-scenes footage, and official coverage. Let's start with the concrete evidence that tells us this storyline is coming. Leaked behind-scenes footage from a private jet set shows Matt Cohen, Detective Burrow, Bryton James, Devin Winters, and Melissa Ordway, Abby Winters, filming scenes together. So, we know for a fact that Detective Burrow is working a case that involves Devin and Abby. And that case requires them to travel by private jet together. And Entertainment Tonight featured a video spotlighting Matt Cohen in his role as Detective Burrow. Now, AT doesn't feature every guest star or recurring character. They spotlight actors and roles that are going to be significant, and the coverage explicitly states that Detective Burrow will gain more screen time and will play a key role in an upcoming mystery involving Devin and Abby. So, we've got behind-scenes footage of a private jet investigation. We've got official coverage saying Detective Burrow is central to a Devon Abbey mystery. And we know this is a 2026 storyline that's been planned and is currently being filmed. The storyline setup, Mariah's mental health crisis. Now, let's talk about how this kidnapping storyline has been set up through Mariah's mental health arc. Mariah recently checked herself out of a mental health clinic in Boston and left the state. Mariah is experiencing severe psychological distress. She's having visions or actual encounters with Ian Ward. She's isolated from her support systems and she's not getting the professional treatment she desperately needs. And the spoilers specifically note that Mariah leaving the clinic sets up her availability for dramatic developments while raising concerns about her stability. So, the show has deliberately positioned Mariah as someone who is mentally unstable, geographically unaccounted for, and in crisis. All of that is set up for what's coming next. And here's what makes this so tragic. Mariah has a history with Dominic that makes her kidnapping him psychologically understandable even though it's completely wrong. Mariah was Dominic's surrogate mother. She carried him for 9 months. She gave birth to him and then she had to hand him over to Devon and Abby. And during that pregnancy and immediately after, Mariah became obsessed with Bowie, Dominic's nickname. Mariah struggled to let go. Struggled to accept that Dominic wasn't her child to keep. Struggled with the grief of that separation. So Mariah has this complicated emotional bond with Dominic that never fully resolved. And now in the midst of severe mental health crisis, that unresolved bond could become the psychological justification for Mariah taking Dominic. The kidnapping, Dominic disappears. The major 2026 storyline involves Dominic Newman Abbott Winter's Chancellor disappearing in a kidnapping plot. And the child is going to be slightly aged up with new casting, which is standard soap opera practice when they want a child actor who can take direction and have more screen time. And insider hints strongly suggest that Mariah kidnaps Dominic, driven by her unstable mental state and that lingering emotional bond from being his surrogate mother. The insiders describe Mariah as acting impulsively and unhinged, potentially viewing Dominic as a fresh start, child amid her struggles. Let that sink in for a second. Mariah, in the depths of psychological crisis, might convince herself that taking Dominic gives her a fresh start, a chance to be the mother she wanted to be, a chance to have the child she bonded with during pregnancy, a chance to escape all the pain and trauma of her current life by starting over with Dominic. And from Mariah's distorted perspective in the midst of mental illness, this might make sense. In Mariah's crisis state, she might genuinely believe she's doing the right thing, that Dominic needs her, that she's rescuing him rather than kidnapping him. Mental illness distorts reality and reasoning, and Mariah might not be capable of understanding that what she's doing is terrifying Devon and Abby and putting Dominic at risk. Insider clues point to scenes of Mariah in a car with the aged-up Dominic as part of her getaway. So Mariah isn't just impulsively grabbing Dominic and immediately getting caught. She's actually fleeing with him, driving somewhere, possibly trying to start that fresh start life she's imagined. The investigation, false leads, and growing panic. Now, let's talk about how the investigation unfolds because Devon and Abby initially suspect the wrong person. Devon and Abby first suspect Matt Clark aka Mitch McCall of targeting Victor Newman's grandson as revenge, and this makes complete sense from their perspective. Matt has been terrorizing the Newman family. Matt is a violent psychopath and kidnapping Victor's grandson would be exactly the kind of cruel revenge Matt would plan. So Devon and Abby are probably terrified that Dominic is in the hands of a dangerous criminal who might hurt or kill him just to cause Victor pain. And that terror is driving their actions, working with Detective Burrow, following leads, doing whatever it takes to find their son before it's too late. But once Matt is cleared, the focus shifts. And this is when the investigation gets really complicated because once they've eliminated the obvious suspect, they have to look at less obvious possibilities. And that's when Mariah becomes a suspect. Detective Burrow remains involved in the investigation throughout, which suggests this is a complex case that requires ongoing detective work. Detective Burrow is presumably the one who figures out that Mariah is the kidnapper who tracks her movements, who finds the evidence that leads Devon and Abby to where Mariah has taken Dominic. Devon faces a loved one, Dominic, in danger, which sparks panic and creates a crisis that strains his marriage to Abby. And you can understand why this would strain their marriage. They're both terrified. They're both making decisions under extreme stress, and they might have different ideas about how to handle the situation once they realize Mariah is the kidnapper. Devon, Abby, and Detective Burrow board a private jet together, likely following a lead to locate and rescue Dominic. So, we've got that behind-scenes footage making sense now. They figured out where Mariah has taken Dominic. And it's far enough away that they need a private jet to get there quickly. The broader connections, how this affects everyone. Now, let's talk about how this kidnapping storyline ties into other ongoing plots and affects multiple characters beyond just Devon, Abby, and Mariah. The spoilers tell us this major 2026 storyline ties together Devon, Abby, Daniel Romalotti Jr., Tessa Porter, and Mariah Copeland. And that makes sense because Tessa is Mariah's wife, even though their marriage is falling apart. When Tessa finds out that Mariah kidnapped Dominic, Tessa is going to be devastated and probably feel enormous guilt. Tessa was with Daniel, moving on with her life, while Mariah was spiraling into a mental health crisis so severe that she kidnapped a child. And Tessa is going to have to ask herself whether she could have prevented this. If she'd fought harder for Mariah, if she'd been more patient, if she hadn't given up and moved on so quickly. And Daniel is tied into this because of his relationship with Tessa. Daniel might feel guilty, too, if he hadn't been there offering comfort and support to Tessa. Would Tessa have been more focused on helping Mariah? Did Daniel's presence and his developing relationship with Tessa contribute to Mariah's sense of abandonment and desperation? The storyline creates significant chaos for Devon and Abby as parents. These two are going to be traumatized by having their child kidnapped, terrified during the time Dominic is missing, and then faced with the complicated reality that the person who took their child is someone they know and care about who is experiencing severe mental illness. And their broader ties to ongoing plots involving Mariah's mental health decline, Tessa's growing closeness to Daniel, and potential legal fallout. The spoilers mention Christine Blair possibly assisting someone in trouble, which suggests that Mariah is going to face legal consequences for kidnapping Dominic. Even though Mariah was in the grip of mental illness, kidnapping is still a serious crime and there will be legal proceedings and potential charges. The psychological reality. Understanding Mariah's actions without excusing them. Now, let's talk about something really important. The difference between understanding why Mariah might do this and excusing what she does. If Mariah kidnaps Dominic while experiencing severe mental illness, that's a tragic situation where a person who is normally loving and responsible does something terrible because they're not in their right mind. Mental illness can distort reality, impair judgment, and cause people to act in ways that are completely out of character. Mariah in crisis might genuinely believe she's doing the right thing, might not be capable of understanding the terror she's causing, might be acting on delusions or distorted perceptions of reality. But understanding that Mariah is mentally ill doesn't mean what she does is okay, or that there shouldn't be consequences. Dominic is going to be traumatized by being taken from his parents. Devon and Abby are going to be traumatized by having their child kidnapped. And even though Mariah is sick, even though this isn't who Mariah really is, the harm is still real and the consequences still have to be faced. And this is the kind of complex, difficult storytelling that soap operas can do really well when they handle it responsibly. Showing a character experiencing mental illness so severe that they endanger others. Showing the consequences of that illness for everyone involved. Showing the difficulty of holding someone accountable while also acknowledging they were sick. All of that can be powerful television if it's done with sensitivity and nuance. The aftermath, long-term consequences for everyone. So, what happens after Dominic is found and returned to Devon and Abby? Well, the consequences are going to be enormous and long-lasting for everyone involved. Mariah is going to have to face what she did once she's getting proper treatment and is more stable mentally. Mariah is going to have to live with the knowledge that she kidnapped Dominic, that she terrified Devon and Abby, that she potentially traumatized the child she carried and loved. And that guilt is going to be crushing, especially because Mariah knows that's not who she is when she's healthy. Devin and Abby are going to have to figure out how to move forward. Can they forgive Mariah? Can they trust her around Dominic again? Can they maintain relationships with Tessa given that Tessa is Mariah's wife? These are incredibly difficult questions with no easy answers. Tessa is going to have to figure out her relationship with Mariah. Tessa moved on with Daniel while Mariah was spiraling. And now Mariah has done something catastrophic. Does Tessa stay and support Mariah through treatment and legal consequences? Does Tessa file for divorce? Does Tessa feel so guilty about moving on that she sacrifices her own happiness to take care of Mariah? Daniel is going to be affected too because his relationship with Tessa is going to be complicated by all of this. Can Tessa really move forward with Daniel while Mariah is dealing with the consequences of kidnapping? Or does the guilt and the crisis pull Tessa back to Mariah and there will be legal consequences? Christine Blair getting involved suggests that Mariah is going to face charges, possibly an insanity defense or plea, possibly mandatory treatment, possibly restrictions on her contact with Dominic moving forward. Even if everyone understands Mariah was sick, the legal system still has to respond to what happened. The controversy: will fans accept this storyline? Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This storyline is going to be incredibly controversial among fans. Some fans are going to be devastated to see Mariah, a beloved character, portrayed as someone who kidnaps a child. Some fans are going to feel like this goes too far, that it's too dark, that it ruins Mariah's character beyond repair. Other fans are going to appreciate the attempt to tell a realistic story about severe mental illness and the terrible things that can happen when someone doesn't get the treatment they need. These fans might see this as important representation of how mental health crises can escalate to dangerous levels if not properly addressed. And some fans are going to be angry at how Tessa's actions are portrayed. Was Tessa wrong to move on with Daniel while Mariah was in crisis? Or was Tessa just taking care of her own needs after being emotionally abandoned by her spouse? Different fans are going to have very different opinions on where the moral blame lies in this situation. The success or failure of this storyline is going to depend entirely on execution. If Y&R handles this with sensitivity, if they show the complexity of mental illness and its consequences, if they don't make Mariah into a villain, but rather show her as a sick person who does something terrible, then this could be powerful and important storytelling. But if they handle it badly, if they sensationalize it or simplify it or use mental illness as a plot device without treating it seriously, then fans are going to be rightfully angry. Final thoughts: a devastating 2026 storyline that will change everything. Alright, let's wrap this up. The evidence strongly suggests that Y&R is planning a 2026 storyline where Mariah Copeland, in the midst of severe mental illness, kidnaps Dominic, the child she was surrogate for, and struggled to let go of. This storyline involves Devin and Abby being terrorized by their child's disappearance, Detective Burrow investigating the case, a private jet chase to find Dominic, and eventually the devastating discovery that someone they care about is responsible. This storyline has the potential to be incredibly powerful if handled with care and sensitivity. It could show the reality of what happens when mental health crises aren't properly treated, the devastating consequences for everyone involved, and the complexity of holding someone accountable while acknowledging they were severely ill. But this storyline also has the potential to be incredibly controversial and to alienate fans if it's not executed properly. Mariah is a beloved character, and seeing her kidnap a child is going to be painful for viewers who love her and want to see her happy and healthy. So, here's what I want to know from you. How do you feel about Y&R potentially going in this direction with Mariah's character? Do you think this is important storytelling about mental health crisis, or does it go too far? Do you think Tessa bears some responsibility for not being there for Mariah during her crisis? And how do you think Devin and Abby should handle the situation once they realize Mariah took Dominic? Drop all your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're as concerned and conflicted as I am about the storyline, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss updates as this develops. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video with more Y&R spoilers and analysis. Until then, stay tuned and let's hope Y&R handles this incredibly sensitive storyline with the care and nuance it deserves. music, wow. Music, heat. Music, music, heat. 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 Music, heat. Music, music, heat. Heat. Music, heat. Heat. Music, music, nah. Music, nah. Music, heat. Heat. Music, 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 heat. Heat. Music, music, heat. Heat. Music, music, heat. Music, heat. Music, music, heat. Heat. Music, hey, music, there. Music, heat. Heat. Music, music, heat. Heat. Music, music, to, music, be, music, heat. Heat. Music, heat. Music, heat. Music, 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 black. Down. Music, music, oh yeah. Hey. Music, heat. Music, heat. Music, music, heat. Heat. Music, 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 heat. Heat. Music, heat. Heat. Music, heat. 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 Music, music, honey. Music, hey. Hey. Music, heat. Heat. Music, music, heat. Heat. Music, 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 heat. Heat. Music, heat. Heat. Music, 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 black. Music, hey. Hey. I love music, nah. Music, heat. Heat. Music, 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 heat. Music, music, heat. Music, heat. Heat. Music, music, heat. Heat. Music, music, LA, music, nah. Music, heat. Hey. 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 Music, heat. Heat. Music, music, hey. Music, wow. Music,